My name is Laura Villanueva, and I'm 29 years old. I bought my house before I learned how to celebrate it. It's a modest three-bedroom colonial on a quiet street where the dusk light walks slowly and the mailman knows everyone's dog by name. The master bedroom is my favorite place on earth, and not because of its size. Half of it is a cocooned office where I sit for 8 to 10 hours most days, writing code, talking into a headset, and pretending the world can't reach me. Dual monitors, a standing desk that hums when it rises, a window that breaks the morning into tidy rectangles. My order, my life. The ensuite sealed the deal the day I signed, a door I could close on chaos. The day everything shifted, my phone rang and lit up with Mom. I answered with the lightness of a daughter who thought she might get a recipe or a weather check. Laura, my mother, Carol began, her voice already smiling, I have wonderful news. There are sentences that enter a room carrying a suitcase. This was one of them. I've arranged for Ryan and Ashley to move in with you, she continued, skipping past my silence. Their lease ends this month, and while Ashley finishes nursing school, they can save for a down payment. We'll put them in your master bedroom. They're married, they need privacy, and you'll be perfectly fine in the guest room. The third bedroom can hold their storage, and later, the nursery. I laughed, a short, cracked sound. You're joking. Laura. The smile hardened. This is what families do. Your brother needs help. You have the space. Don't be selfish. I stared at the soft lines of sunlight stacked on my office floor like sheet music. Mom, the master isn't just my bedroom, it's my office. None of this fits in the guest room. I work here. You can work from the kitchen table like everyone else. You don't need that fancy setup. There it was, the old script, polished by years of use. Ryan's needs arrive gilded. Mine arrive with a price tag and a lecture. Mom, I said, steady, I pay the mortgage. I pay the taxes, the insurance. It's my house. A beat. The sigh I know by heart. Your father would be ashamed you're talking like this. He always put family first. There are knives that don't need to touch skin. Dad died when I was 15. Ryan was 9. My mother has always been careful with the memory and careless with the weapon. I closed my eyes and saw Dad's hands tightening a toolbox latch, saw his grin when he'd say, right tool, right job. He would have been proud that I saved, that I signed, that I stood. Ryan called me, she added quickly, like a softness over broken glass. He agrees this is what's best. That night, Ryan called himself, voice hesitant, Ashley faintly audible in the background. Lore, I told Mom the guest room's fine. We'd be grateful. She's insisting. She made it sound like you'd already said yes. What do you think? I asked. Let the question ring like a small bell. He exhaled. I think it's weird. Ash looked at another apartment just to avoid this. Mom said we'd be stupid to pay rent while you have space. There was no villain in his tone, only embarrassment. I told him I'd figure it out. 2 hours later, a text from James, my stepfather, arrived like an unopened door. Nathan, we need to talk, man to man. That's what he sent in the original story a man wrote about my family. For me, the words were different. Laura, can we meet for coffee tomorrow? Something's off. I'd like to hear your side before Saturday. I hadn't realized there would be a Saturday. I hadn't realized Mom had invited them to help relocate me to the guest room. I hadn't realized how far my mother had planned this for me. James has always been polite in the way of men who make good money with their hands. He owns a construction company. His silences carry the authority of a clean beam. He never tried to be my father, thank God, but he also never tried to be my friend. The text felt like a soft knock on a door I didn't know existed. I typed back 8 a.m. Bluefinch Cafe. I barely slept. The house hummed, innocent of negotiations conducted over its floor plan. I walked the hallway at 2 a.m., fingertips grazing the paint I'd chosen, the frames I'd hung. I thought of the guest room, how it cradled guests because it was meant to. A space changes shape when you rename it. Master to guest is not just a swap of sheets, it is the story of who counts. Around 3, Daniel, my boyfriend, texted back to a message I'd sent earlier, a breezy wish for luck with his late-night deploy. Ugh, still at the office. Also, your mom's right. Married people need privacy. It's temporary. Keep the peace, babe. A tiny pebble in my shoe. I didn't respond. Morning broke precise and pale. At the Bluefinch, James had already ordered 2 coffees and was folding his reading glasses with the exactness of a man who never loses things. Thanks for meeting me, he said, standing as I approached, which made me think of Dad. an ache shaped like a chair pulled out for you. Before we start, I need you to know I had no idea about any of this. Carol told me we were helping you move some furniture. When I asked for details, the timeline bent in strange places. He laid his phone on the table. Texts from my mother bloomed like careful hedges. Laura offered. Laura feels guilty. Laura insisted on the master because she works from the kitchen sometimes anyway. Doesn't sound like you, he said. You're generous, but you're not foolish. I told him everything. The call. The demand. The ghost of my father brandished like a warrant. My words came out measured, but they contained an earthquake. James listened, the way builders measure. Every fraction matters. When I finished, he leaned back and looked at the ceiling for a long, quiet second, as if checking for hairline cracks. Your mother loves you, he said, and she has a blind spot the size of a garage when it comes to Ryan. I saw it, I stayed out of it, that was a mistake. He said he'd spoken to Ryan the night before. Ryan mortified. Ashley, practical, both preferring the guest room or another apartment entirely. They didn't ask for the master, James said. Carol did, on their behalf, without their blessing. Under the table, my hand curled into a fist and then opened like a flower trained by wire. What do we do? We set the terms, he said simply. Fair, firm, clear. They can stay in the guest room. They'll contribute to the increased utilities. There's a timeline. The master stays yours. Carol will push. She'll cry. She'll invoke your father. You won't engage with manipulations. I'll handle Carol if needed. And if you don't? It slipped out before I could iron it. He smiled without offense. Then you will, because it's your house. He told me something I didn't expect. I grew up a stepchild. My stepfather had princes. I had hand-me-downs. I swore I'd never allow that in a family I joined. By keeping quiet, I allowed it. I won't anymore. I thought about Daniel's text, keep the peace, babe, as if peace were ever kept by giving away the parts of yourself that keep you whole. I imagined Dad at a workbench, the slow rhythm of a sanding block passing over wood. Right tool, right job. James finished his coffee and stood. They're meeting us at your place in an hour. Mom already has a key, I said. He nodded. Then we'll knock on your door anyway. On the drive home, the neighborhood was exactly the same and entirely different. The school bus shushed by, the same dog barked at the same mailman, and I felt like a woman about to rearrange the laws of a small nation. At my curb, I paused and looked up at my house. It didn't look back. It just waited. Inside, I smoothed the duvet on the master bed, touching the life I had chosen. I walked to my office corner and set my palm flat on the desk. Cool, familiar, mine. I heard a car door, then another. Voices. A key slid into a lock that didn't ask my permission. I crossed the room. I did not rush. I did not apologize for the sound my heels made. When I reached the front door, I found the knob, opened it, and stepped into the hall like a woman walking into her own name. Living room, I said, calm as a judge. We're going to talk. The living room smelled faintly of my lavender candle, burned down to its stubborn wick, as if the house itself were bracing for impact. Mom stood by the hallway, tape measure dangling from her hand like a weapon disguised as domesticity. Oh, good, you're here, she chirped. Laura, I think your desk can fit in here if we angle it. James, help me move the nightstand. Carol, James interrupted, his voice the calm edge of something sharper underneath. We need to have a family discussion. Living room, everyone. Everyone. That word usually meant everyone except me. Ryan and Ashley exchanged uneasy glances as we all took seats. Ashley's hand looped tightly around Ryan's wrist. Silent apology for something she hadn't done. James looked at me. Laura, it's your house. You should start. I took a breath so deep I could feel my ribs shift. Ryan, Ashley, I began, voice steady. You're welcome to stay here for up to 3 months while you save for your own place. You can have the guest room, share the main bath, and of course use the kitchen and living room. I'll need about $400 a month to cover utilities. The master bedroom and my office stay as they are. Mom's reaction was immediate. Her face twisted with disbelief. That's ridiculous. You're charging your brother rent and stuffing them in that tiny box? It's not rent, I said, measured. It's to cover expenses. And that tiny box is larger than their apartment. But married couples need... Carol, James cut in smoothly. Laura owns this house. She pays for everything. She's made a generous offer, and that's final. Her mouth opened, closed. Her eyes darted to him. You're taking her side? I'm taking the side of what's right, he replied evenly. Laura isn't obligated to house anyone. The fact that she's offering at all should be appreciated. For a long moment, silence sat heavy in the room. Then Ryan cleared his throat. Mom, stop, please. Laura's being generous, and we're grateful. Ashley nodded quickly. Mrs. Carroll, we appreciate how much you care, but this is between Ryan and Laura. We can handle it. The tape measure slipped from Mom's fingers and hit the hardwood floor with a metallic snap. Her lips trembled, not from sadness, but from the sudden collapse of control. I was just trying to help, she whispered. Your help isn't helping, James said gently. It's time to let both of them be adults. That was when she turned and walked out. No door slam, no dramatic exit, just the quiet scrape of dignity dragged behind her. When the door clicked shut, Ashley exhaled shakily. I'm so sorry, Laura. Don't be, I said, forcing a thin smile. This needed to happen. Ryan reached over and squeezed my shoulder. You handled that better than I ever could. Practice, I muttered. They left soon after to start packing from their old place, promising to move in that weekend. James stayed behind, his presence filling the quiet without smothering it. You did good, he said finally. That was harder than it should have been. Thank you for backing me up. He sat on the couch, posture thoughtful. Your mother talks about your father often. From what I gather, he was a good man, hard worker, loved you both deeply. He was. My voice cracked before I caught it. She's kept him alive through stories, James continued. But I think she's also rewritten him. The man she describes, the one who'd want you to give up your room, your peace, for Ryan's comfort, that's not the man I see reflected in you. I think your father would have been proud of today. The words hit deeper than I expected. No one in years had said Dad's name without turning it into leverage. James stood and stretched, looking toward the door Mom had walked through. I'm not trying to replace him, Laura, but you deserve someone in your corner. That night, after he left, the house felt strangely still. My phone buzzed. Daniel. So how did it go? Messy, I typed, but settled. Good. Just try not to make enemies, babe. You know how family gets. That line again. Keep the peace. He said it so easily, as if peace was a doormat you could just lay back down after someone wiped their shoes on you. I didn't respond. Instead, I walked to the master bedroom and sat at my desk, opening my laptop but staring past the screen. Outside, porch lights flickered on up and down the street, one by one, like distant affirmations. It wasn't just about a bedroom, it never had been. It was about the hierarchy I had silently accepted for years. Mom's word above mine, Ryan's comfort before mine, my needs dressed as luxury instead of legitimacy. Now, for the first time, I'd chosen to speak in the language my father taught me. Quiet firmness, clean lines, no wasted motion. Still, beneath the victory, there was an ache. I had drawn a boundary, but I had also drawn distance. And I couldn't shake the thought that in Mom's mind, I had just become the villain of her story. The next morning, sunlight hit the window just right, bouncing off my monitor and catching the framed photo beside it. Dad, Ryan, and me at the lake, all sunburnt smiles and waterlogged sneakers. I traced the outline of Dad's hand on my shoulder in the picture. Right tool, right job, I whispered. Maybe boundaries were just that, tools for rebuilding what had been uneven for far too long. But every builder knows, before you rebuild, something has to break. And something in this family had just cracked wide open. 3 days later, Ryan and Ashley moved in. No drama, no noise, just the low hum of a U-Haul and the cautious politeness of people walking on glass. They were perfect house guests from day one. Ashley unpacked their things quietly, labeling boxes, wiping down shelves that didn't need wiping. Ryan, once careless, with everything from deadlines to dishes, now folded towels like they were holy relics. They were trying. Maybe for me, maybe to make up for Mom's overreach. But the silence after the move-in was strange. It wasn't peaceful. It was loaded. Mom hadn't called. Not once. Even her usual Sunday text, "How's my girl?" never came. Instead, I got a single notification from James. "She's licking her wounds. Give it time." I should have been relieved. Instead, I kept glancing at my phone like a guilty child waiting for punishment. Daniel, meanwhile, had opinions. "See?" he said during our Thursday video call, leaning back in his chair, his voice casual in that way people use when they think they're being reasonable. "It worked out fine. You made your point. Your mom's dramatic, but she'll get over it." I frowned. "You make it sound like this was just an argument." "It kind of was," he said. "Not everything has to be deep, babe. Families fight. Just move on." Move on. 2 words that meant pretend nothing happened. 2 words I had lived by for half my life. I can't move on, I said quietly. Not until she understands what she did. He sighed. You and your need to dissect everything. Sometimes you just let it go. Sometimes, I thought, men who've never been told to shrink don't understand what it costs to grow. We ended the call early. He didn't notice that I didn't say I love you. That weekend, James invited me to lunch. No pretext, no hidden agenda, just a quiet message. Bluefinch again? My treat. When I arrived, he was already there with 2 coffees, a small habit I was beginning to associate with safety. Carol's still quiet, he said, stirring his drink. She's been reading articles about family favoritism. Saw them open on her iPad. I raised an eyebrow. She can read all she wants. Doesn't mean she gets it. Maybe not yet, but guilt is a strange teacher. He took a sip, then set his cup down. Laura, I need to tell you something. After your dad passed, your mom went to therapy for 6 months. The therapist told her Ryan might struggle more because he was younger. She took that as gospel. Pay special attention to him. But she turned attention into priority. That hit like a door, unlocking somewhere in my memory. I saw it all differently now. The baseball games she never missed. The graduation party she forgot. The way she'd say Ryan's still finding himself whenever I mentioned my promotions. She hadn't just loved him more. She'd loved him guiltily. She also told me, James continued, that you were the strong one, that she leaned on you too much when your dad died. Maybe she's been compensating for that ever since. I didn't know whether to feel empathy or fury, maybe both. Back at the house that evening, Ryan knocked on my door. Got a minute? He looked nervous, hands shoved into hoodie pockets. Sure, I said, closing my laptop. I just wanted to say thank you for letting us stay here, for, standing up to Mom. I smiled faintly. You don't owe me thanks. I wasn't just standing up for myself. He nodded. Yeah, I get that now. I think Mom's been using Dad's memory like armor, protecting herself from guilt. He hesitated. She's not the only one who owes you an apology. My chest tightened. Ryan. No, let me say this. All those times she pushed you aside for me, I knew. I just didn't want to deal with it. She made life easier for me, and I let her. I shouldn't have. The honesty in his voice made it impossible to deflect. Thank you, I said softly. That means more than you think. He gave a small, awkward smile. We're adults now. About time we started acting like it. That night, after they went to bed, I sat in the living room with a glass of wine and the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. The house felt heavier, but not with resentment, with truth. Then came another text from Daniel. Hey, I might not make it next weekend. My ex, Rachel, is in town. We're grabbing coffee to clear the air. Don't make it a big deal. I stared at the screen. A week ago, I might have shrugged it off. But something about standing up to my mother had rewired me. I typed back. You don't owe your ex closure if it costs me peace. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then silence. For the first time, I didn't chase it. The next morning, I found a note taped to my coffee machine, in Ryan's handwriting. We'll take care of dinner tonight. Ashley says you've done enough for us. I smiled despite myself. Maybe boundaries didn't just protect you. They taught others how to love you better. But Mom's silence still pressed at the edges of my days, like a storm that hadn't decided where to land. And something told me she wasn't done yet. Mom's silence stretched from days into weeks. Not the angry kind of silence, the kind that vibrates, the kind that tells you she's building something behind it. I kept expecting her name to light up my phone. Instead, it was James who texted, steady as sunrise. She's thinking, Laura. She won't admit it, but she's realizing things. I didn't believe him. My mother's realizations usually came wrapped in guilt trips. Still, I'd be lying if I said I didn't miss her. The way she hummed when she cooked, her terrible handwriting on grocery lists, even her dramatic sighs. You can crave someone's absence while remembering why you needed it. Meanwhile, the house was peaceful. Ryan and Ashley were model tenants. They paid their utilities early, cleaned without being asked, and even bought me fresh flowers every Sunday. Ashley reorganized my pantry, alphabetically. It was borderline terrifying, but I let her. They were trying to show me gratitude without words. And honestly, it worked. But while one relationship grew easier, another was starting to fray. Daniel had become distant. It started small, canceled plans, late replies, then excuses that didn't make sense. Work's crazy, he said. You wouldn't get it. You work from home. The tone hit harder than it should have. He made home sound like a downgrade. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd fought to protect this house, to stand firm in my own space, yet somehow, with him, I was shrinking again. One night he finally called. His voice was soft, careful. Hey, Laura, just wanted to say I'm sorry about earlier. Rachel needed closure. It was just coffee, okay? I didn't answer right away. Daniel, I said slowly, if I have to convince myself to be okay with something, it's not okay. He sighed. You're reading too much into everything again. Or maybe I'm finally reading it right. There was silence on the line, heavy, humid. Look, he said, I'm not your mother. You don't need to fight with me. No, I said, you're right, I don't. I hung up first. That small click of finality felt like slamming a window shut on a cold draft. Later that week, James invited me to dinner at a little steakhouse outside town. When I arrived, he already had a glass of water and 2 menus waiting. He always ordered for himself last, another quiet habit of decency. We didn't talk about Mom immediately. We talked about weather, his job, baseball. Then, halfway through the meal, he said, Your mom's in therapy again. I looked up. Really? She didn't want you to know until she had something to show for it, but she's talking about patterns. Grief, guilt, favoritism. My heart twisted. That's good, he nodded. It's uncomfortable for her, but that's how you know it's real. He leaned forward slightly, elbows on the table. You know, Laura, after your dad died, your mom was scared you'd grow up too fast. And when you did, she blamed herself. She convinced herself that spoiling Ryan would balance things out. It didn't. Instead, it broke both of us, I murmured. Exactly. The waitress came by with refills, and we paused. I stared out the window, where rain streaked the glass like soft gray veins. She's not a monster, James said quietly. Just a mother who confused love with overcorrection. I felt my throat tighten. That doesn't erase the hurt. No, but understanding it might help you let go of carrying it. I didn't answer. I wasn't sure I wanted to let go yet. Anger had been a kind of armor. When I got home, the house was dark except for the warm glow under the kitchen door. Ryan and Ashley were still awake. Ryan looked up from the table. Hey, we saved you pie. Apple? Of course. He hesitated before sitting again. Mom called me today. My pulse jumped. And? She wanted to know how we're doing. She didn't ask about you at first, but then she said, Tell your sister I'm proud of her, even if she hates me right now. I froze. That was not a sentence I ever expected to hear. Ashley smiled gently. She's trying, Laura. Maybe this is her way of reaching out. Maybe, I said, though it came out more fragile than I meant. After they went to bed, I stayed in the kitchen, staring at the slice of pie I hadn't touched. Proud of me, I whispered to the empty room. The words sounded strange in my mouth. Foreign. The next day, an envelope slid through my mail slot. No return address. Just my name in my mother's handwriting. Slanted, confident, familiar. Inside was a single sheet of paper. I'm not asking to be forgiven. I'm asking to start understanding. Dinner Sunday, I'll bring dessert. Mom. I read it twice, then set it down beside my coffee. Maybe James was right. Maybe this silence wasn't punishment. It was incubation. But something in me was still wary. Because in my family, peace never arrived without a test. And I had a feeling the next one was coming soon. Sunday arrived heavy with nerves. I spent the morning pacing, pretending to clean what was already spotless. Every time the doorbell chimed in my imagination, I flinched. At 6 p.m., the real bell rang. When I opened the door, Mom stood there holding a pie box, like a peace offering wrapped in cardboard. Behind her, James carried a casserole, Ryan a bottle of wine, Ashley a bouquet of lilies. The sight almost undid me. Hi, honey, Mom said softly. No smile, just trembling politeness. Hi, I managed. Come in. We sat around the table that once held every holiday, every argument, every apology, disguised as dessert. Mom's hands fidgeted with the napkin on her lap. Before we eat, she said, voice low but firm, I need to say something. The air froze. I owe you both an apology, she began, glancing between me and Ryan. But especially you, Laura. I've been unfair to you for years. I told myself I was protecting Ryan after your father died, but what I was really doing was trying to fix my own guilt. You were strong, capable, independent, and I took advantage of that. I made you the adult too soon. Her voice cracked. And when you stood up for yourself, I treated it like betrayal. Ryan reached for her hand. Mom? No, let me finish. She looked back at me. That whole bedroom situation, it was cruel. And it wasn't about space. It was about control. I see that now. The pie on the table smelled like cinnamon and regret. James spoke gently. Carol's been working hard these past few weeks. Therapy, journaling, all of it. She wanted tonight to be honest. I swallowed, my throat thick. I appreciate the honesty, but I need time. Words are good, but I need to see it. Mom nodded immediately. You're right. I'll earn that back. For once, she didn't argue. She didn't cry to manipulate or talk over me or bring up Dad. She just sat with it. Ryan smiled faintly. See, progress. We all laughed softly, the first shared laugh in months. After dinner, while we cleared the table, Mom touched the photo frame on my mantel. It was Dad holding both of us on the dock, sunlight spilling between us. He'd be proud of you, she whispered. Of both of us, I corrected gently. Her eyes glistened. Of both of you, she repeated. When they left, James lingered behind to help carry dishes to the sink. She meant it, he said. It's a start. I know, I said quietly. It just hurts that it took this much to get here. He nodded, rinsing a plate. Growth usually hurts the person who outgrew first. I smiled sadly. You always sound like you swallowed a therapy book. He chuckled. Occupational hazard of being the designated adult. I leaned against the counter. Thanks for staying neutral through all this. He looked up at me. I didn't stay neutral, Laura. I took your side. There's a difference. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept circling back to one thought. Maybe forgiveness wasn't a single moment. It was a practice. Still, peace felt fragile. The next evening, Daniel called. His name flashing on my screen felt foreign, almost intrusive. Hey, he said, you disappeared on me. I didn't disappear, I replied calmly. I just stopped chasing. He laughed uneasily. Okay, dramatic. So, are we good now? Daniel, I said slowly, you went for coffee with your ex, dismissed my feelings, and made me feel small in my own home. That's not something I move on from overnight. He groaned. You and your boundaries. It's exhausting sometimes. That word, exhausting, was the final nail. Then maybe I'm not the peace you're looking for, I said. Click. End of call. End of chapter. The next morning, I deleted his contact. Not out of anger, out of clarity. Because something had changed in me since that day Mom tried to move me into my own guest room. I no longer equated silence with peace or sacrifice with love. Later that week, Mom called again. Not to lecture, not to intrude, just to ask, do you need anything from Costco? It was mundane, ordinary, and it meant everything. She waited for my answer, and when I said no, she said, okay, sweetheart, I'll see you soon. No guilt, no pushback, just love, finally stripped of strings. When I hung up, the house was quiet again, but this time it was the good kind of quiet, the kind that feels earned. A few days later, Ryan came home from work grinning. Guess what? He said. We found a house, 15 minutes from here. Ashley beamed beside him. We close next month. Wow, I said, smiling for real. That's amazing. Ryan looked at me, hesitant. Would you and Mom help us decorate? Mom. That word landed differently now, softer. Sure, I said, but only if you promise to let me pick the curtains. He laughed. Deal. That night, when I went to bed, I stared at the ceiling and realized something strange. I didn't feel smaller in my family anymore. I felt seen, and that, I thought, was worth every uncomfortable dinner and every long silence. Still, deep down, I knew the final test of this piece hadn't arrived yet, because in my family, love was never the ending. It was always the next rebuild. Ryan and Ashley moved out 3 weeks later. The U-Haul pulled away on a Saturday morning under a bright, forgiving sky. They hugged me tight at the driveway, promised dinners and visits, and thanked me again for the roof that had kept them steady while the family healed. When their taillights vanished, the house fell quiet, real quiet. I walked back inside, barefoot on the cool floor, and felt it, the stillness of ownership, not just of property, but of peace. The guest room door was open, bed neatly made, a folded note on the pillow. Laura, thank you for giving us more than space. You gave us perspective. Love, Ryan and Ash. I smiled, tucked it into the drawer of my desk beside Dad's old screwdriver. That evening, Mom called. I stopped by Ryan's place, she said. They're happy, and you should see the curtains. He actually took your advice. Her voice was light, almost shy. Good, I said. They deserve it. Listen, she continued. Father's Day is next week. James thought maybe we could all have dinner together. Just family, no speeches. There was a pause where once guilt would have lived. Yeah, I said. That sounds nice. She exhaled like she'd been holding that breath since January. When the call ended, I sat on the couch and stared at the empty guest room doorway. For years, that space had represented everything I wasn't allowed to claim. Privacy, autonomy, control. Now it was just a room. Mine to fill or not. And in that stillness, I realized something. I didn't need to fill it with anyone's presence to prove my worth. The next day, James texted, "Fishing Sunday? Just you and me. Your mom will join later for lunch." I laughed out loud. I hadn't gone fishing since I was 15, with Dad. "Sure," I wrote back, "but you're baiting the hook." At the lake, the world slowed down. Water shimmered under the late morning sun, and the air smelled like cedar and rain. James set up the lines while I sat on the dock, shoes off, feet brushing the surface. "You know," he said, "your dad used to take Ryan and your mom to the same lake. He told her once that peace isn't the absence of noise, it's the choice of which sounds matter." I turned to him, surprised. "You knew him?" "Not personally," James said, "but I feel like I do. He's still in the way Carol loves too much, and the way you refuse to be small. You both carry him differently." He hesitated, then added, "Laura, I'm proud of how you handled everything. Boundaries are the hardest love language to learn." Something in me softened. "Thanks, James." He smiled. "Call me old-fashioned, but I believe when men marry women with kids, they marry the family. You and Ryan are mine too. No qualifiers." The words lodged in my chest, gentle, anchoring. For so long, I'd thought strength meant doing it alone. Now I understood. Sometimes strength is accepting the person who chooses to stand with you. When we packed up, he handed me a folded note. "Your father would be proud. I know I am. Jay." I kept it. It sits on my desk now, next to the framed photo of Dad holding us at the lake. The same dock, the same sunlight. That night, I walked through every room of my house. The kitchen that smelled like late-night coding and coffee. The living room that had heard every argument and apology. And finally, the master bedroom, my sanctuary. Everything was back where it belonged. But more importantly, I was back where I belonged. My phone buzzed. A message from Daniel, months too late. "Hey, been thinking about you. Maybe we could talk." I read it once, smiled faintly, and deleted it. No anger, no closure needed, just quiet certainty. Because here's what I've learned. Boundaries don't end relationships. They reveal who's willing to meet you at them. Mom still slips sometimes, like last week, when she nearly asked me to review Ryan's mortgage paperwork. But she caught herself mid-sentence, laughed, and said, "Never mind, he's got it." And for the first time, I believed her. My life isn't dramatic anymore. It's simple, peaceful, earned. I work. I garden. I visit Ryan and Ashley for dinner. Mom brings dessert and listens more than she talks. James tinkers in his workshop and teaches me how to sand wood smooth enough to reflect light. The family I used to dream about isn't perfect, but it's real now. Sometimes I stand in my office, coffee in hand, sunlight spilling across my desk, and think about that first phone call, the one that started it all. Mom said families help each other. She was right in her own way. But real help isn't about taking someone's comfort. It's about respecting their foundation. The master bedroom remains mine, but through it, I gain something much larger. A family that sees me, a peace I built myself, and a home that finally feels like both.